On the next article, which is the state building, we can't go in and look at the state building because it's a sick building. I would wear breathing gear. I was in that business for 35 years. I would not enter that building without breathing gear. The roof is leaking. The mold is spreading. The varmints are infesting the building. It needs to be taken down. In my view, it cannot be repaired. We spoke with that owner. That owner has absolutely no plan for that building. He doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't want to do anything. It'll likely sit there and very soon be condemned by the Stoughton Board of Health. And it will sit there as long as that owner controls that property. So our plan at spring town meeting would be to take the property. He has told us he's into the building for $1.9 million. We're fairly certain the property will appraise at under $700,000. If town meeting approves it, we will then seek guidance from the planning board, from the town planner, from the head of development, Mark, as to what the highest and best use would be given its zoning. We would then put it on a path of accelerated permitting. We would go back to town meeting and ask for the money to demolish the building, not the storefronts, the building. Once we do that, and Mark's team is accelerating the permit process for what our intended use is, by the way, the intended use may be a theater, if that's what the town and the planner is looking for. We will then take that plan, that permit, that shovel-ready project, and we will put it out to bid under 30B through our procurement office. I can assure you, and there are dozens of projects I can name where towns did this, that we will recover all of our money and most likely a factor of 2 or 3 times the investment we made. And we will control our own destiny. And we can develop that downtown. Now, why is that so important? I'm a bit outside the scope, Mr. Chairman, if you'll indulge me for a second. Mark and I met with Selectman Cavey, with Congressman Lynch in my office a month ago, and he is working on our behalf with the United States Postmaster General about moving the post office to a safer location in another part of Stoughton, and we've offered them 6 pieces of property. If that's done, and we move these properties forward with the intended design or the intended purpose that is the will of the town, then that site where the post office is, which if you look at it from a drone, is a massive piece of property for a postal service that's no longer a distribution hub. They do that in Randolph now. They don't need that big property. That would become a green open space. So we're not looking at a massive urban renewal plan. We're looking at 3 pieces of property in the town that are causing a lack of development in that very precious economic target zone. If we're successful with eminent domain and with Mark's leadership, permitting and making those sites shovel ready, those sites will take care of themselves. If working in collaboration with Congressman Lynch, who's been a great friend of ours, and we get the Postal Service to move that site to a retail site where you go in to buy stamps and mail letters, not a distribution center, then we will have that site that we can make as a green space. Now, Stoughton becomes a magnet for high-end retail companies that want to do business in the town of Stoughton. So I thank you for indulging me on the whole story. I think our citizens have a right to know. I know, Vaughn, you and John have already been briefed on this, and I appreciate you giving us that opportunity. I'd like to ask Mark if he's got anything to add, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Mr. Tisdale, do you have anything to add to this?
No, not
Very much, Mr. Calder.
Not much. I think just generally, like Town Manager Calder just said, we want the private sector to do this. We do not want to buy these properties. And that's why there's been a lot of work and effort in trying to send the permitted plans to certain developers that are requesting the plans. And by the way, there's been activity of developers requesting plans. So we're hoping there isn't an article for the annual town meeting. Hopefully somebody can acquire the property before then, and we're not talking about this. So that's the goal, and I think Tom said it well. All the details he pointed out, I'll point on, and I have nothing further to add.
All right, thank you very much for that. Earlier, someone had mentioned about articles being withdrawn. If we were going to get something in writing saying that, is there going to be an email on this?
Which article?
18 and 19. Earlier,
The 5 articles?
Yeah. If
You're
we,
right, Vaughn. We'll get that to you tomorrow
Okay,
morning.
great. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee on Article? Joel, 18 or 19? Or?
Mr. Chairman, if both of these articles are being withdrawn, why are we discussing them?
Well, we just got an explanation. I figured I'd ask if anybody had any questions in regard to the explanation we got. I didn't want to leave the committee unable to ask a question in regard to an explanation we got. So I just thought.
Well, I got to tell you that the route they're taking, speaking as someone who has actually worked for a developer, is very risky in my opinion. I'm glad you feel that you're going to make a lot of money on this, but I work for a developer who did exactly what you're looking for. He bought properties in distress, and then he took it, bought the architect's contract, the general contractor's contract, built them, and made money, but the people who sold it weren't really happy about it very much. But I'm not particularly thrilled about the idea, but as far as I'm concerned, if this is going to be withdrawn, I don't know if we really need the time to talk about it now.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments on 18 or 19, both of which are being withdrawn? Yes, Diane.
Yeah, I would need one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? If the property is actually almost at the point where it's going to be condemned, shouldn't the owner of the property be taking it down? Doesn't that fall under them if it's a condemned property?
If it's condemned, our health department would likely order them to demolish the building. That would be wonderful. I just want to reiterate what Mark said. We don't want to buy this property. We don't want to own this property. I agree it's risky for a developer who buys it, but there are lots of people in that business. You'll see people all week this week that Mark and I have been calling saying there's an opportunity here. We hope that this action will pressure the property owners to make a deal in the private sector without us. What we can't tolerate is another 10 years of it being stagnant and sitting still. But to your point, Diane, if it's condemned in a health hazard, we will go to court and get an order to have the site either repaired and brought back to its original use,
Right.
or demolished. It's a great question.
Chairman, just my comment. It's been empty long enough. I think it's time.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, John, you,
Just one, because the way this is listed from 797 to 809, but you're only talking, you're talking specifically about the theater, but this is half the block that is under this ownership, correct?
That's correct, John, and you're 100% right. The article reads both properties. We can't change the article. Since that time the article was written, we were planning to amend it to reflect that one property,
Okay.
not the storefront, but you're very astute. You're 100% right. The spring article will be just for that property.
Thank you.
Dave, you have a question on this? Don't forget, they're being withdrawn.
I know. I know. Well, we had a presentation.
I know,
guess
and I'm-
opinions are.
That's why I'm
Available.
taking questions on it,
And
because we
thank
had a
you for that.
presentation.
I appreciate.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Dave.
Your generosity for that. So I understand shovel ready when we talked about Malcolm Parsons. How on earth is Article 19 shovel ready? All right. Well, the problem I have is that it makes sense, the problem with Malcolm Parsons, because it is shovel ready, and when the town goes into acquiring something like that, there's a purpose for it. We already know it's going to be mixed-use building. It'll have retail on the bottom, residents, people can move in, whatever. So I've seen so many projects where we bought properties without a clue as to what we wanted to do with them. Matter of fact, I stepped in and tried to support the idea of turning the railroad station into something because it was lucky that happened to be an interesting thing that we owned. But generally speaking, we just went out and we just started buying stuff. Oh, look, these little chess pieces, we could turn them into something. And I've heard from experts who said no government should be in the business of buying a property without a purpose of what they wanted to do with it. So I'm completely against owning a theater under any grounds, but I'm okay with the idea of the Malcolm Parsons if it makes sense with all the other things that surround it. So I just wanted to get that on the record because I don't think the town should be involved with buying things they have no idea what they're going to do with it.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you very much for that, Dave. Yes, Mr. Calter.
I want to thank you again for indulging us in this discussion. Mark and I get several calls a week asking why the town is doing nothing on those two properties. And we give them answers. And I admit we're using this forum to be able to answer all those questions so that we don't have to deal with them one at a time. What I want to respond to David on is that you buy a piece of property without a plan, you've got a fool for a client. There's no question about it. I think I said many times, before taking it, we will seek citizens' input as to what should be on that site. I'm talking about the State Theater. The reason it's a safe bet, and David, I know you love details. I'll give you a dozen towns that are doing this very successfully. They're controlling their own destiny. Stoughton should control its own destiny. We would not take it and flip it. We've got an extraordinary engineering department. The value comes not in the land, although it's valuable because of where it's located downtown. The value is in entitling the property. If we take the property and we tear it down and we go through, with Mark's leadership, permitting it, engineering, design, all in-house. Now you've got an entitled, permitted property, which is where Malcolm Parsons is right now, an entitled, permitted property. Now you've got a property that has value times X because of the entitlement. Nobody wants to buy raw land that's going to take them a year to permit and entitle it. If you've got a shovel-ready project, you've got a different set of plans. And we sell it with the town of Stoughton's best interests in mind. In other words, we put it out for the bid to bid what we have designed and permitted, not what they want to do with it. So again, we're controlling our own destiny. Stoughton has to stop being a victim of others. This is controlling your own destiny.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the committee on Article 18 or 19? Elliot, you have a question or comment on this?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chair. Who are the principals, who owns the town, the theater, and if it's a corporation, who is the principals in that corporation?
It's owned by an older gentleman of Greek heritage who speaks broken English, but we've had some pretty good dialogue and we understand each other. He lives on the North Shore. He doesn't live here. I get the sense, he has not told me, that this is a tax haven. It's a passive investment where he writes off the losses. He's paying some pretty substantial taxes every year on it. He's got a portfolio of properties that I'm sure he's making a lot of money on. He has no interest, by his words, no interest in investing in this site. It will sit there for another decade.
Does Malcolm Parsons, the building, is that still owned? The other one, is that still owned by Malcolm Parsons?
It's owned by a gentleman named Steve Conley.
What was the name again?
Steve Conley. We've had a good relationship with him between Steve and Conley and the town. He's heartbroken, but he's abandoning the project. He's planning to sell the project. We're doing all we do to help him find ready, able, and willing buyer. We don't want to be in this business. We just want to see progress.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee on Article 18 or 19? 18, property located at 760 Washington Street. 19, Joel.
Regrettably, I got one more comment. Out of curiosity,